Welcome to the Modern Homesteading Podcast.
We have allowed ourselves to become so disconnected and ignorant about something that is as intimate as the food that we eat.
Be prepared to grow your own for victory.
God said, I need somebody strong enough to clear trees and heave bales, yet gentle enough to yean lambs and wean pigs and tend the pink-foamed pullets who will stop his mower for an hour to splint the broken leg of a meadowlark. So God made a farmer.
Hello and welcome to the Modern Homesteading Podcast. I'm your host, Harold Thornborough, and glad you're joining me again today. This is episode 97, July 12th, 2018. And today we're going to talk about eating healthy from the homestead. In this podcast episode, I'm just going to answer a question about what I believe caused my past health issues and the diet that helped me turn it all around. Hope you're having a great week so far this week. Feels good to kind of be back on track, back to work. I had that vacation last week, and boy, it takes a few days to adapt to getting back on schedule and working every day and doing your same old thing, but I think we're getting back on track. And we started our first canning of the year, finally, made some pickles just last night. It was up late last night making pickles and waiting for that infamous salsa to first start rolling in. When we first start getting our red tomatoes, we'll probably make some more batches of pickles, then we'll start on salsa, and then we'll start the hardcore canning of the year-long the veggies. So looking forward to all that. You know, canning isn't my favorite part of homesteading, but it's absolutely a necessary part, I believe, if you're going to put up your harvest for the winter. I mean, if you just want to eat through the summer and then go back to your regular old thing in the winter time, you don't have to do it. But if you really want to preserve that harvest, you know, canning is really important. And it was kind of a learning process for us. Now we just hot water bath can the pickles is all you got to do. But once you start breaking out the pressure canner and all that, you know, things start getting pretty serious. But you know, it's hot and it's hard work and it's messy. But I'll tell you, when it's all said and done, you feel good that you've put some food up. You know, it feels good to open up your cabinets and seeing all those jars stacked up. So, you know, in the end, we really enjoy doing it. The process, not so much fun, but you know, it's part of it, and it's nice to have that stuff on store all year. Let's just jump right into today's question. Jim asks, you have spoken about your diet numerous times and why you started it. But my question is, what do you eat exactly? What don't you eat? Why do you think the grocery store had a part in your cancer? Or do you mean when you say you ate junk food, you actually mean McDonald's? I am looking to hear your opinion about more healthful eating. And before I even get started on this question, I'm just going to throw out the disclaimer. You know, I am not a doctor. I do not offer medical advice. The information shared in this podcast is my opinion. It's the testimony of my personal experience. I'm not saying you should do it. It's just what I did. You know, that's what he's asking me. What did you do? And here's what I did, you know. So I just want to make that clear because I don't want anybody to listen to what I'm about to say and think that's what I'm going to do. And then it doesn't work out for you. And then, you know, the way it worked out for me, especially when it comes to cancer, because I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And there's a lot of different opinions on what you should do, how you should eat, what your diet should be when you're a cancer patient. So I'm going to tell you what I did, why I did it. And I'm not saying anybody else should do that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give you an example of somebody that went completely the opposite of what I did, and it worked out really well for them. So, you know, I just want to put that out there. You listen to your doctor. You make up your own mind. You know, go out there and listen to other material, read other books, do your own study, and make a decision that's yours, not somebody else's. So I just want to say that up front. And I guess I want to start here by just saying what my cancer story is, because maybe there's someone who hasn't heard it. Obviously, Jim has heard it, but I want to just kind of throw it out there real quickly for maybe somebody who's new to the podcast and doesn't know. What really brought me into homesteading in the beginning, I mean, I've always had a heart for homesteading, always wanted to do it, but what actually drove me into doing it right where I am and the way I'm doing it was cancer. It's been over 6 years ago now. I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer, had a tumor probably about the size of a tennis ball in my gut, and it had gotten outside of its containment within my colon, and so it was stage 3. And I was 39 years old when I was diagnosed with that. I had a life of being a truck driver, eating really poorly, and I'll get into that in a minute, that I believe led up to that. 39 years old, my youngest daughter, I have 3 daughters, my youngest was just graduating high school, and it was a wake-up call. I'm thinking, wow, I've spent most of my life as an over-the-road truck driver, looking out the windshield of a truck, not eating right, not exercising right for the previous few years anyway. And, it hit me pretty hard. And I didn't know what to do other than, make a few changes in my life. And at first I went through that depression stage where you just kind of, I kind of give up, and here it is. And I'll go the traditional route and we'll see if it works out. And then, I kind of had a wake-up call, and I started doing a lot of reading, a lot of studying. And, like everybody does, you get an illness. I mean, you almost become an expert in it. You just start using all your time reading, and the internet isn't always the best place to do that. Trust me. I mean, you get so much different advice, and probably a lot of wrong advice, but you do it anyway. I mean, everybody does. You jump on the internet, you start browsing websites, you start reading things. But I did find some credible sources, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes, that kind of led me down the path that I went down. Long story short is I started growing my own food and raising animals, and eating meat that I raised, and I even started buying organic raised stuff, healthy meats, healthier vegetables. We started eating like that. We stopped eating out of, for the most part, cans and boxes and frozen foods, and we went to a more healthy, what I believe a healthy organic lifestyle, eating that way. Now, I think what's more important is not as much what I ate, but what I stopped eating. And I think Jim, he picked up on that. He asks, what exactly do you eat and what don't you eat? Because that can be just as important as what you eat. And I'll talk about that more in a minute. But that's my cancer story. It's what drove me into homesteading, because as you know, eating healthy is expensive. And I'll also talk a little bit about that. And I wanted to eat healthy, and I wanted to be sure that it was healthy. And I think the only way I could be sure of that and afford it was to grow my own. So it's what led me down the homesteading. It's not, I always had a desire to homestead, but it's what pushed me over the edge and said, I got to start doing it now, So that's kind of my story in a nutshell. The long story short is I did a little bit of chemo. I was supposed to do several months of chemotherapy. I did 3 chemo sessions, and I bailed out, and I went radical diet. And I had a doctor, the doctor pretty much told me I was nuts for doing that. He said, I'll see you in a couple years when it comes back. He said, you can't do this. It's going to come back. And, 6 years later, I mean, pretty much they tell you that if it hasn't returned in 5 years, that you're good with that cancer. Now, you could get another cancer, but that cancer isn't coming back. That's pretty much what they tell you when you do it. And I'm 6 years. I'm a little over 6 years now, cancer free. And I attribute that not just to my diet, but I think the diet was a big part of it. So that's it in a nutshell. Again, what I'm about to tell you, if you have been diagnosed with cancer, I'm not telling you to go the route I took. And here's why I'm going to say that. Because there was a lady who went completely the opposite. She had cancer about 2 years before me that I know. Well, I actually know her husband real well. I work with him. She went the opposite route. She went hardcore chemo, and actually she had stage 4 colon cancer. She had pretty much everything. I had exactly the same spot and everything, but hers was stage 4. She went chemo first. It came back. She went radical chemo the second time, radical surgery and chemo the second time, and she's 8 years cancer free now. So, it worked for her. So again, I'm not going to say, do what I did and jump out of chemo and go radical diet. That's a decision everybody has to make up on their own. I did. It worked for me. It may not have worked for that lady. her cancer was even a little bit more serious than mine. And like I said, she went a radical chemo and surgery route, and it worked for her. So, I think there's benefits with modern medicines, but treatments, but it just wasn't going to work for me. It was really hard on me. I felt bad doing it. I mean, it was hitting me, I think, harder than it hit most people, and I opted out of it. So that's kind of my cancer story in a nutshell. But why do I believe? I want to answer the question first. What do I believe caused my poor health issues in the first place? Now, Jim says, why do you think the grocery store had a part in your cancer? Or do you mean you ate junk food? Well, I don't blame my cancer on the grocery store or McDonald's for that matter. I blame it on myself, my poor decisions. I think you can eat semi-healthy from the grocery store. I think it's much harder to do that from fast food restaurants. I didn't do that, though. I mean, 99%. No, I'll go 90% of what I ate was junk. And when I say junk, it was fast food. And the other 10% was, 9% of that was from boxes and cans and bags from the grocery store. We didn't make wise choices even when purchasing from the grocery store. We didn't shop that outer aisle much. We didn't grab the fresh veggies, and we didn't stick to that part of it. We was diving down the middle aisles where the can and box stuff was. And that's how we were eating, even when I was home. And when I was on the road, seriously, it was nearly 100% fast food. I mean, it was McDonald's, it was Taco Bell, it was KFC. And you know what? I think the body is very resilient. I think you can handle a lot of that. I don't think you can handle that all the time. And that's how it was for me for a few years there as an over-the-road truck driver. And, I'm not a grossly overweight guy, but I was probably 40, 50 pounds overweight eating like that, And it wasn't just the diet. It was the lifestyle of just sitting and not getting exercise. I used to be a runner. Even when I first started truck driving, the first few years I was a truck driver, I was a runner. I mean, I would run. There was a time in my life where I was training for a marathon, and I was running over 100 miles a week. Just going out for, I go out from anywhere from a 5 to a 20-mile run in a day, and I was very, very fit. And then I just stopped one day. Well, I actually broke my ankle. And then, I kind of just got used to not running, and I never went back to it. And, my lifestyle of sitting in a truck caught up with me. And, I started putting on some weight, just eating poorly. And like I said, I think the body is pretty tough. I think we can take a lot of stuff. If we couldn't, everybody would probably die in their 20s because we just don't eat good for the most part. And so I think we have the ability to take in quite a bit of that stuff and still be somewhat healthy. We still be able to get along okay. Eating like I was, you can't do it. I mean, I was an extreme example of poor eating and poor exercise. And that's what I believe caused my cancer. I don't blame it on the grocery store. I don't even blame it on fast food. I blame it on myself. Really poor decisions. I think you could eat some fast food. I do eat some fast food now. I really do. And that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the diet that I was on right after cancer. I want to talk about the diet I was on a couple years later. And then I'll talk about where I'm at now and where I probably should be. Because I'm not ideal now. I do eat some fast food. I don't eat a lot, but I'll tell you, I stop at the truck stop nearly every day and get a sandwich. It's not fast food. I mean, I'll get a tuna salad sandwich or chicken salad sandwich or a chicken sandwich or something like that from a truck stop where I stop every day for lunch. It's not a big meal. I'll just eat something light and, I'm not junking out too bad. I do drink a soda occasionally. I do eat a candy bar or something occasionally. I mean, I'm not perfect in my diet anymore, but I should be doing better than I'm doing. And I'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute. I do want to say I don't recommend this diet for everybody. The diets I'm going to talk about for everybody because everybody's situation is different. I mean, your health situation is going to be different depending on where you're at. I do think that eating organic, eating less of certain things, everybody should probably do. We should have a less sugar intake for the most part, so I think that's important. But here's my diet. Here's where it was. Let's go back 6 years ago. Okay. I stopped chemo and I went radical. What did I go radical on? I went ketogenic. I went radical heavy fats. I went pretty much paleo, but a little bit beyond that. I went ketogenic, and what that means is that you put your body into a state of ketosis, and that's a metabolic state where you raise your levels of what's called ketone bodies in your body tissue, and it's not an ideal situation for everybody, but short term it's okay for most people. And I read a lot about ketogenic diets and cancer and how it can help in certain situations, and I made the decision to just do that, and I went radical. I mean, it was 0 carbs and 0 sugars for a few months, and I probably went into a ketogenic state for about 3 months right off the bat, and it was radical, and I lost 50 pounds in that 3 months. I mean, I lost a lot of weight. It was very reduced calorie intake, and I totally did away with carbs for like 3 months. Now, that is not the state you want to stay in. It's a short-term thing. It's what I did. Again, do your own research on that. Don't just say, oh, I want to do that. It worked for me, I think. And I wanted to put my body into that state, and it was not easy. It was very hard to put my body in that state. I went back to work. I was driving a truck. Your food choices are limited. I was having to take food with me. I couldn't eat anything really hardly on the road. I was taking food with me, the little bit I was eating, and I went radical. I went very radical with it. And I didn't have any, I mean, like I wouldn't even eat ketchup because it has sugar, a corn syrup in it. I mean, the only kind of thing like that I would put on anything would be mustard. I mean, there was no kind of condiments or anything like that other than mustard. There was, I would drink coffee, water, milk occasionally. I would drink milk. I drank quite a bit of milk, I guess, because it was a heavy fat intake and low protein. You even lower your protein. It wasn't even paleo because you're lowering your protein even to the point where it shocks your system. Now, I did this, like I said, for about 3 months, and then I kind of went to more paleo. I started going heavy meat, a little carb. Paleo would say no carb. I went a little bit of carb, and now when I say a little bit of carb, it was generally carbs I was making. Like I was making my own bread, and of course there was fruits and veggies. So I was getting some carbs in the fruits. I balanced out with more paleo for, I would say, for probably a year after that. I was mostly paleo, and then I went to what I feel like was a better diet, and that was I started following what was called the Weston A. Price diet. The Weston A. Price Foundation, it was founded by a lady named Sally Fallon, and I'll recommend her book here in just a little bit. About that they recommend a diet that is what I believe is a very healthy diet, and this is why I say it's a credible source. I mean, it's been around for a long time. And their diet, I believe, is a diet that works. It's similar to paleo in a lot of ways, and then there's some major differences, though. I mean, they do believe in some dairy and some carbs, but they're limited carbs and they're healthier carbs. And that's like I said about making my own bread and things like that. There was a healthier aspect to the carb intake, and I would say after about a year, I probably went to this diet more than anything, and I stayed on this diet for a couple years. And then why I say it like that was, this is the diet I should still be on. I should be maintaining this diet. So I'm not going to get into all the details, but yeah, it is no sugar really. I mean, you want to do away with pretty much sugar out of your diet. Now, I use sugar to make jams and jellies, and I use sugar to make my kombucha. I mean, I use sugar in this house. We use sugar, and I have some intake of sugar still. I mean, I have way more than I should have now. But even when I was following this diet, there was still sugar. I mean, I was eating some sugar things, but very little. Probably 10% of what I used to eat, if that, 5 to 10% of what I used to eat, and still, I don't eat near as much as I did, pre-cancer. But I think more importantly than the intake is, or into what you're eating is what you're not eating. And I think you really want to reduce that sugar intake. And I think that we're a nation who is really heavy on the soda, really heavy on the snacks that are high sugar, and we really need to reduce that. That's just my personal opinion on that. Now, specifically, I do believe that antibiotics and hormones that are used in raising some meats. Now, I know that there's been regulation on that that's cut a lot of that back. I believe that, in milk productions and things like that, I think there's a lot of unhealthy things in a lot of the meats and vegetables that you buy in the grocery store. There are pesticides that you cannot wash out no matter what you do. If you'll ever look up what's called the dirty dozen, and these are the fruits and vegetables that are the worst in the grocery store. These are the ones you should avoid and buy organically. And those are some of the worst, and they're also some of my favorites. Look those up, and if you're going to grow anything or buy anything organic, those would be the ones to buy. Avoid the pesticides. Avoid the things that would have. And I always get into a little bit of an issue here because some people will argue the fact that meats don't have hormones or meats don't have antibiotics. Well, they do use antibiotics a lot, in raising chicken, and not everybody does, but most of your large commercial barns will use, a lot of antibiotics and even some hormones in some cases to increase sizes. Not always, but you have to be careful, So we started buying more healthier meat, and I'll tell you what's really difficult to find in our area is raw milk. But, the Weston A. Price diet is really big on raw dairy. We do buy our butter because I don't have goats or cows or anything. Of course, here we're an urban homestead. So we do buy our butter from an Amish farm. And so I get a lot of heavy fats with my butter there, healthier fats. So we do use real butter. You want to drink raw milk on the Weston A. Price diet. It's very difficult to find around here, though. Like I was saying, it's just some states it's really common. Here it's not because it's not legal to sell in the stores. So it's not real common. It's hard to find. And when you do find it, it's really expensive, really expensive. So, like 5 to 10 times more than what you'll pay for milk in the store. It's ridiculous, really. Eating foods that aren't laden with pesticides and Roundup and things like that, herbicides. Eating foods that I like grass-fed, grass-raised meats that haven't been fed grain that is laden with pesticides and herbicides. This is where I'm at. Reduce calories, higher proteins, higher fats, way less sugar, and less carbs. I still eat a lot of carbs, but it is a healthier carb diet. It's definitely, we're, like I said, we're making our own bread a lot. We're, trying to eat things that are healthier carbs. And I think that's important, but that's where I'm at now. Now, again, I said that I've kind of went back a little bit on where I should be. I'm eating some sugars. I'll grab a candy bar occasionally, or I'll drink a soda occasionally. I shouldn't be doing that. Honestly, I shouldn't be. I drink way more soda than I should. I'm probably drinking 3 or 4 a week, and I'm eating more sugar than I should. And I say that because I know better. It's so funny, you have something like cancer come into your life and it changes you radically. And then I find that we're a forgetful people. People are forgetful, and we tend to kind of go back to our old ways, or we start to do what's easy. And let me talk a little bit about that. I think that, let me just explain the difference between simple and easy. I think eating healthy is simple. I really do. And you're asking me why I eat and what I don't eat. It's very simple. What's healthy and what isn't healthy. You really do. It's simple. Eat stuff that isn't sprayed with poisons. Eat stuff that was raised in a better way, Eat stuff that was grown in a better way. Eat less sugars, That's as simple. These are simple things. That doesn't make them easy. It's very difficult to eat like that, especially in our society because it's made so readily available for us in the stores and at gas stations, things like that. When you make stops or you want to eat quick, because we're such a busy people, we tend to want to eat quick, and not take a lot of time preparing our meals and stuff. So it's not easy. It's not easy to eat healthy. It's simple, but it's not easy. I think most people know what they should and shouldn't be eating. We just don't take the time to do it. And I find my lifestyle pretty busy. People always are pointing out, how do you get so much done? Because I'm doing the homesteading and I'm working a lot of hours at my day job. I mean, I work, 50, 60 hours, closer to 60 most weeks, and then I'm homesteading in the evening and I'm doing this podcast. I'm running a website and I'm doing a membership forum. And, I got a lot of stuff going on, I got a lot of stuff going on. I'm busy all the time. And it's real easy for me to skip properly preparing. Like I said, I stop at a truck stop every day and grab a sandwich. I should be prepping me up a good healthy salad every night to take to lunch, the next day. Or digging some rabbit meat out and making something out of that to take with me the next day to work. I don't most days. There was a time when I was, and I'm just so busy now. I don't, I take that one meal a day and make it a light meal, but it's not a real healthy meal, There's a lady, I get a little bit under conviction every day because there's actually a cashier that works at the truck stop I stop at. And she's just a super healthy, we talk a little bit about gardening occasionally because she's a big gardener and she's eating healthy, and she'll see me throw a soda up on the counter and grab a sandwich, and she'll be like, oh, you shouldn't be eating that. You should be eating healthy, and she'll kind of make me feel bad about, and I'm glad. But I'm like, yep, this is just my one meal a day like this. I eat out of the garden the rest of the day. And she kind of laughs because she's really healthy on this stuff, and she kind of puts me under conviction a little bit. And I like that. And I like doing a podcast like this because it reminds me that it kind of helps me think it out a little bit and go, you know what? You need to get back on track. You need to not be eating the way you've been eating lately. And it reminds me of why I started eating the way I did, and kind of kicks me in the pants a little bit. So thanks, Jim, for helping me think about it a little bit more. Because you know what? I haven't been eating as great as I should be, and I need to get back on track. And I think the Weston A. Price diet, and I'll put a link in the show notes today so you can look that up. Those are my recommendations for today, actually. We'll just jump into that. Go check out the Weston A. Price Foundation website. I have a link in the show notes. Check that out. I think that's the diet. In my personal opinion, there's the diet we should be aiming for. We really should. I think it's a great diet. Paleo people would disagree with me. People who hold to a ketogenic diet might disagree with me. But that's the diet I think we should be on, in my personal opinion. It's where I felt the best. I had more energy than I ever had. I was maintaining healthy weight. I just never felt so good. Never felt so good. Actually, from the time I went ketogenic, even through paleo into that diet, I felt better than I had my entire life. More energy, just felt like I could take on the world. I really did. And I ain't felt like that lately so much. So definitely need to get back on track with the diet. So I wanted to mention a book also written by Sally Fallon. It's called Nourishing Traditions. It's a cookbook. It's the cookbook that challenges politically correct nutrition and diet dictocrats, by Sally Fallon. And I'll have a link to that in the show notes as well. Really good book. It'll help you kind of get on that diet and stay on that diet. And those are my recommendations for today. And in the Homestead Life segment, let's just continue this pattern. Let's talk about what's better in my life because of homesteading, and that's the availability of healthy eating options that I can afford. I've heard a lot of people over the years say they can't afford to eat healthy, and I've mumbled it myself a time or two. However, homesteading has made it easier and more doable to eat healthy at an affordable cost. And I love that I can go out my back door and I can pick a healthy meal. And that's how homesteading's made my life better. It really has. I can go out and pick a salad right now. I can jump off this podcast, go out and pick a few things, grab a cucumber, grab a green pepper, grab a couple different kinds of lettuce, some arugula, some purslane right from my garden, and I can make myself a nice healthy salad. I can eat healthy like that, and I love that. Homesteading's made that possible. It's expensive to eat healthy. It really is, and homesteading's made it possible for me. So there you have it. There's the answer to my question. Maybe it's not everything you wanted. Maybe you wanted specific details on the diet. Go check out the Weston A. Price diet. That's my details that I recommend. It's not where I'm at exactly right now, but it's where I should be, and it's where I felt best, and it's what I recommend. So if you want to submit a question for the podcast, and I do need some more questions, I got a few, but I haven't had one for a few days show up in my email. You can send your questions to ask@smalltownhomestead.com, or you can call or text in your questions. We get a lot of them by text to our voicemail number at 765-203-1949. You can submit questions as often as you like, as many as you want, and I'll try to answer them on the podcast. This podcast is made possible by those who join our Homestead Forum membership community. You know, I just really appreciate everybody that's in that group. You know, you do pay the bills for this, and it means a lot to me. And, you know, we try to give you a few extra things in that membership community that make it worth it for you. But in the end, you're supporting this podcast, and I really appreciate it. So if you want to learn more about the benefits of membership, go check out the homesteadforum.com. It's thehomesteadforum.com, or you can just head on over to smalltownhomestead.com, and there's links there that for signing up for the membership forum. And you know, like I said, there's a lot of videos in there. There's extra podcasts in there. There's a forum in there. There's you know, we do live chats in there. There's discounts to other homesteading products in there. I mean, try to give you your money's worth. You know, it's not an expensive membership by any means, but you know, I don't want it to be a charity either. I don't want you just to donate to this podcast. I want to give you something for taking care of, you know, of keeping this thing going. So go check out the Homestead Forum membership community. I think it's worth it for you to be a part of that. And you know, some great people in there, and you know, the forum's getting bigger. You know, it's not as active as I'd like it to be. I'd like to see the forum get a little more active in there, and I think as more people come in, it will be more active. And but you know, still the live chats are usually pretty active, and you know, lots of videos and podcasts going up in there. So check it out and be a part of supporting this podcast and all the work we're doing. The show notes for this episode can be found at smalltownhomestead.com/97. Thanks for joining me today, folks. Hope it helped. And until next time, happy homesteading and God bless.
Thanks for listening. To see the show notes for this podcast or listen to other podcast episodes, go to smalltownhomestead.com. There you can also read our blog, connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, and take advantage of the many resources we make available to help you along in your homesteading journey. Please share this podcast and help us to carry out our mission of helping others to homestead today for a better tomorrow.